Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Taboo Free Talk Show, where we talk about anything and everything. I am your host, Crown Jules. What up, what up, what up? Tune in, tune in, tune in. The Black Hair Party presents the Real Talk Show, where we talk about friendship, love, and purpose. Friendship has everything to do with aura, love is more, and purpose is about saving time. I am JRX36, and this is an All Ages Alliance production. Here we are, here we are, here we are. Look, Juju, say what up. What up?
What's up, guys?
How you doing? What we doing over here?
Which go?
DCZ.
No, I brought guests,
Okay.
my coworkers. They got 15 minutes.
Okay. What up, co-workers? I'm just like literally getting up.
Word.
Hey, co-worker, how are you?
Hi.
So you want to introduce DCZ?
Yeah, so you met Kim. So disclaimer, like I did Kim, it is recorded. So I told my coworkers, my extended family, that if they don't feel like chiming in, they don't have to. They can just listen. Right.
That's right.
So this is Danae, whose gender pronouns are they, them. She, excuse me, I can't even read at this point. And this is Claudia, her gender pronouns are she, her. This is Julian for transparency, but this is also JRX36. And so what we do every night, we call it the Real Talk Show, where like we just talk about whatever comes to mind, and we just do a deep dive. But for the most part, we always talk about love, relationship, loyalty. What else we got?
Love, friendship, and purpose, to keep it simple.
Excuse me. I'm too difficult. But yeah, this is
Whatever it is, it'll fall into one of those categories.
and so the previous rendition, which was cool, was called the Taboo Free Talk Show. And so for about 40 days or 40 nights, or just 40 nights for the better reference.
Right.
JR would log on every day, every night at 6 p.m. our time, which is what, 10 your time now? Or 9 o'clock now?
It was 8 my time. We're 3 hours apart, so it was 8 my time.
And so every night at 8, holidays, not holiday, like he got on. Not only that, he's the one person of a high intellect that I like and love. I met him through Youth Build. He's out in Florida, right?
Yeah, Florida.
He's out in Florida. And so it's just the truth to power to like the Youth Build Network, right? He's generations before when it comes to even in the Youth Build Network. I'm like way later. But mad respect for this dude. We reconnected this year, and I've been vibing ever since. And there's another person, like he has a partner with the whole show named Alexandra, and she's normally in too, and he provides support in terms of I want to say leadership development in regards to her. Normally in the beginning, you know, they do their thing and they break down programming, and JR has a lot of experience with youth development. And of course I allow him to speak towards his experiences with that and his knowledge with that. But more so again, like we always here talking about friendship, loves, and purpose, and breaking that down in however many ways we can. And we define our own, we provide our own definitions for that, our own values for that. And it's cool. It's the same space we always hold in open space. What the hell is pop ed? Like we just learning off each other.
Just talking. And this is my son Juju. You can see he's like all over the place. That's right.
How old are you, Juju?
Yeah, he's not gonna answer.
All this.
Yeah, we haven't really taught him about age and all that, so I have like a somewhat of a non-traditional approach to raising my children. like I was just thinking about it, like, you know, like questioning the whole idea of like happy birthdays and everything. Cause it's like, what does it mean when you really understand what your birthday means? You know what I mean? When you find out that, you know, like one day you may not have a birthday, or, you know, like just the whole concept of birthday, the one day is more special than another. So I haven't paid no attention to, you know, making him understand what that means. I'm real sensitive when it comes to time, you know, like, cause at least, well, let me just go around. When did you guys first figure out that like people die? That people's time ends? Or do you remember? Are you conscious of that moment? Steve, are you conscious of that? You remember?
I started going down a rabbit hole when I saw my first dead body. You feel me? And or funeral. That's like 100. I started thinking about that. Like, when was the first time I went to a funeral? Or was the first time I saw it on TV to even know what it was, and how did I connect to that, to reference it to like seeing a dead body, even to reference it to like going to a funeral. So I couldn't even tell you when right now, but I'm thinking about how when we were little in the hood, and my brother and our sister was on the bikes, and then it was a shootout in between the store clerk and the dude that was robbing the store in the middle of the street, and we were like in the middle of that shit. And like for some reason I couldn't reference the dead body and or a funeral, but I referenced that and associated it with death, even though nobody died that day. And so that's, and I can tell you I was like 4 years old or some shit when that happened. Wow. So that's interesting for me to like just process that quick. Like, damn, wait, whoa, nobody died there, but that's why I went when you said that. Like,
okay. I know for me, like, I remember like my uncle died when I was like 10 or so, but I still didn't quite get it, you know? So my uncle was from New York City, or he was living in New York City. He got caught up with the HIV AIDS epidemic that happened, you know, back in the late 80s. And I remember like my mother was taking care of him, whatever. You know, I just didn't quite understand what was, you know, I noticed that he was sick or whatever, but I didn't really get it. They told me that he, you know, he passed away or whatever. He was living with us at the end. And I remember I just kept playing, like, you know, they told me the news and I went to go play. I went to the funeral and everything, but I don't think it never really kicked in, you know? I guess I don't think that I really understood it until it was after they broke into our house when I was like 12 or so. And I won't go into the whole story, but that's, you know, they broke in, there was like a burglary, and long story short, towards the end, they locked us in the bathroom and they were arguing about killing us or not. And I think that's when I still didn't even, that like, I was just watching my older brother, like, you know, he's a church person. So he was like praying. He never really, he never like engaged them. He just like his way of like coping with the situation was like just to pray or whatever. You know, they were beating him up, then they pointed the gun at me, and then like he wasn't responding or nothing. But when we were in the bathroom, you know, they were arguing about killing us or not, because we had seen their faces, especially me, given the way it went down. Ultimately, they didn't. But then I would have nightmares after that, and I didn't even know what was going on. Like I didn't even know enough to like tell my parents and my mom or whatever that I was having nightmares about it. Eventually, I just dealt with it myself. But you know, it was traumatizing at the end of the day, and it was like they would break into my house every single night is what ended up happening. You know, I would dream about it. But I learned to face my fear. Like eventually, like I would like wake myself out of my sleep, because I would be like, okay, they broke in, and then I'd be like, trying to act like I'm sleeping, but then I can feel my breathing getting heavy, and I'm like, they're gonna find me. So then eventually I had to realize that nobody was there, and I had to stand up, you know, go out, walk around, see that nobody was there, and then eventually after we moved, you know, the dream stopped happening. But I think that's probably when I first really understood like what it could possibly mean to no longer be here. And I don't even think I fully grasped it, but that's when I experienced fear, I guess, if you want to say it that way. And it was almost like so shocking that I don't even know that I was even fully in fear. It was like an out of body type of experience type thing. But yeah, you know, that and maybe other experiences made me really sensitive with time. Like, you know, I've been interested in like the future, and then church traumatized me too with the whole you know, the end of time and like people getting left behind, and you know, you might not make it conversation. So yeah, you know, when I had my children, you know, and I was in my head trying to, you know, reimagine what life could be like if we had a different programming. Time became a big part of it. So, you know, I don't make a big deal out of their birthdays or nothing like that. Like, they don't really understand that. And they, you know, if you're not taught it, you don't really know what that really means. You know, like he doesn't know like 4 or 5 that doesn't really make sense. And then I have an 8-year-old. This is why I have a 15-year-old. He kind of understands it, but not because we ever taught him either. But I homeschool, so you know, well, we homeschool, and so it makes time feel so much different, you know, because there's no pressure to learn to read. There's no pressure. And I guess by homeschool, like my approach is like unschooling, I think is what they call it these days, or deschooling.
We call it
Like
unlearning.
you heard about it? Yeah.
Unlearning.
Yeah. So I just basically, you know, am patient with them and let their curiosity dictate like what happens, and trusting that, you know, they're gonna figure it out, you know. But yeah, look, I'm on my soapbox today, D Steezy.
Hey, I got some shit for time too, but
Go ahead.
I don't want to take up all the time. How about that?
Go ahead. Hop in.
I don't know. Dale, I want to say something about time, or what'd you say? The first time you understood death, I guess that's what you said.
Like, it went dark all quick. Like, how did even get there?
That's what you started.
You don't even talk about that. It's supposed to be love, friendship, and purpose. Like,
I was like, yo, what's the first time you saw a dead body? I was like, oh shit, damn, I can't remember.
Now, you know, it's not really that dark though. That's the thing, I guess. Like, and like I'm joking about it, but you know, look, I'm on a soapbox today, like, and I'm trying to get to know Danae and Claudia. So in my life, and I don't even know if you know these Steezy. Man, I've almost died so many times, bro. I think I'm like at 9 now. Like, I'm literally like a cat. And it's like when you get to that point where there's that possibility, you know, you can't, well, at least for me, I refuse to be afraid, you know, like I don't want to be afraid. And after the experience, it like shakes you up to like live life to the fullest, in a way that, you know, it changes you. Like, you know, I was in several car wrecks. The first major car wreck that I was older, because I was in one when I was younger. So the one when I was young, we was hit by a truck and we rolled over and everything, but I was good. But the one that was a little bit more scary because I was older was junior prom, D Steezy. We got into a head-on collision with a drunk driver, yo. Now, mind you, my homeboy had been driving reckless, you know, that night, but not at that moment, which, you know, worked out. But, you know, with the head-on collision, it was like time slowed down. Like it was like, you know, it was, I didn't experience the life flash before your eyes in that instant, but it was like time slowed down. I lost my breath, and it was just like, am I gonna catch my breath? You know, am I gonna catch my breath? Look, we going, but it ain't dark. It ain't dark. Like, because ultimately, what happens is you develop a mindset of gratitude, and you're just grateful to be here. And that's when I could appreciate friendship and love and purpose. Like I found my purpose through these experiences, and I'm just a happy person. I'm happy to be alive. Yeah, Steve, the name Claudia. What you eating on, Claudia?
I'm eating my favorite thing in the world, jicama.
Jicama. What's jicama?
How do I explain it?
Looks like a potato.
I'm about to say it ain't
It's
potato
a
though.
root vegetable, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
This is what
Yeah.
it looks like.
Okay. And that's your favorite. Does it have a taste? If root vegetables usually don't taste like anything.
It literally just like water. It's hydrating and with like salt. It's just good.
It's kind of like an apple.
Okay.
Sorta.
Yeah, the texture's similar.
Okay.
But the flavor, hell no. The
No,
flavor
it-
can also the flavor
takes
can
on the
almost be like
flavor
a
of
raw
whatever you-
potato. Like the flavor could almost be a raw potato when you think about it.
I
Low
But
key.
guess.
Fine, except this doesn't have the carbs of the potato, and you can cook it too. So
Oh, I
Were
never
you,
had it.
you eating it raw?
yeah, I'm eating it raw.
Oh, interesting.
Like I would eat, like I eat it with like cucumbers, you know, like a fruit kind of cucumber. What else do I have in here? That's it. I thought I had pineapples too, but no.
Okay.
And their name is pronounced Dana A. Like, hey, Dana A. You know what I mean?
Thank you. Um, so I wanted to address what you were first talking about is for me, I've known about death since I was little because in my culture and in my family, we celebrate the Day of the Dead, Dia de los Muertos. And so I grew up with beautiful altars in my home to remind us of our ancestors and grandparents and, you know, relatives that are no longer with us, right? And so I know at a young age, right, you don't really comprehend, right? You're just kind of like, what happens? Like we all die? Like what does that even mean, right? Because you were just born, right? So you were in the spirit world already. So you there, like it shouldn't be your time yet to go back to the spirit world, basically, right? And so for me, like I understood that how to honor the ancestors, right? And this is, we did this by the altar, right? We did this by cooking up their favorite food, right? Having their favorite fruit or vegetables, even candy, alcohol, their blunts or cigarettes, whatever it is, because that's what they enjoyed when they were here, physical, like and present with us, right? And so I still do that to this day. I also have 2 kids, right? And the way that I do count years, and for me it's like the rotations around the sun that we do, right? So it's like, oh cool, you've done 1 rotation around the sun and here's your 2nd rotation. So I have an 8-year-old, right, that has done 8 rotations, and I have a 3-year-old has done 3 rotations, right? And for me it's like learning that life is a gift, right? And we're never guaranteed how long we want to live, right? But that it's a gift, so treat it as that, right? And that life and death is literally a breath away from each other, right? And so I think with that upbringing, I just knew that my dad always taught me too that we're constantly in cycle, right? So even like the seasons that we have, like we literally see our plants die and then rebirth, die and rebirth, right? Through all the seasons. And so he reminded me that that's how it is for us, right? And that when we transition, right, we're going to our next adventure, right? Or our next thing. And we also believe that our spirit is still around. And there's like, for example, when my grandma passed away, she had a very strong connection with the hummingbird, right? And so literally, I see hummingbirds in my backyard all the time. So I like to think that that's my grandmother's spirit just around, just being. And, my grandmother, when I was living back in Mexico, she raised me, right? And so I consider her as also a parent figure, right? While my mom was out working and stuff like that. And so I feel like we also have this belief, right, that our spirit is everywhere too. And so I do talk to my children about this. And so um, they already lost a few of their relatives, right? And so I let them know, like, it is very sad, right, that they're no longer with us. But sometimes when you look up at the stars or you feel that breeze and you remember that they're there too, right? When you feel happiness or when we go to the beach, like they're there as well, right? And I want you to remember that, because me and your dad, right? We're not always going to be here, right? And I don't say that to traumatize them or anything, right? Because I don't know what's going to happen in my life. I want to live a long life, right? I do everything in my power to live a long life, like eating healthy, all this stuff, drinking lots of water, everything, right? But I just don't know, right? But I want to pray that I do live a long life, and I already let them know, I was like, I better have a really beautiful altar. And you already know the type of food I like. You better have chocolates on there. You better have my blends on there, like all of this, right? And just joking, right? Because I know that being around death, or like experiencing the loss of a parent, is going to be a lot for them, right?
Mm.
But because of our culture and the stories that we have, it's like, look, this next adventure, like I tell my 8-year-old, right? I let her know, like, hey, I may come back as a rabbit because I love rabbits. I feel like I'm connected to that. So whenever you see rabbits around in the mountains or whatever, just know, like, smile and be like, hey, there's mom right there, like enjoying the next phase of her journey in that spirit life. So um I think I know that that's how I talk about life and death. And yeah, I'm blessed that I haven't had um super traumatic experiences. And when you were sharing, like, I'm sending you like good energy. And I'm sorry that you went through that, because no one actually should go through that. No young person should go through that. But I know that life is different for everyone. And so I just grasp onto like what I have now, and like how um every day is a blessing. So I also I do prayer runs, and I like to do them in the morning. And so every morning when I see that sunrise, right, I give thanks. I'm like, it's another day, right? It's another, and I'm breathing, right? And I should be grateful. No matter how shitty I may feel like life is going, like I'm like, it's okay. Like the sun is reminding me that we have this opportunity again. Every day is just a new day to manifest what you want to. It's to start over, right? It's to take that breath again, right? So that grounds me as well. And that was also taught by some of the elders in my community, right? Who have, I guess you could say, we've been reclaiming our, I guess, um, what was before genocide and what was before colonial time. Like, we're reclaiming some of those things, right? And so, like, our elder, right, he teaches us that that life is a gift, and that whenever you can go on that run, remind yourself, or walk, right? Because I'm not trying to be ableist either. Not everybody can run or walk, or can use their legs, right? So that's real too. It's just like, have that relationship with the sun and the moon, because that's a constant that we have, right? And so pray to those, because we also consider those as ancestors, right? Rocks, mountains are considered ancestors too. So whatever you can, like, just honor that and remind yourself that life is beautiful, right? It's a beautiful struggle, right? But also, like, remember that every breath that you take is a gift. So yeah, so I'll just stop there. And um, I don't know if people have comments or stuff. Damn, I'm like doing my facilitation thing. We would just I facilitated a whole training today, so that's why I'm like, okay, any comments, any
Hey, you're good.
questions?
I don't mind being facilitated.
So yeah, my bad. But obviously this is
good.
free flow. There's no agenda.
Cool, cool. I really appreciate what you shared. It brought up all kinds of thoughts. You know, I'm always thinking, you know, thoughts are popping in. D Stevie, I like the way he be talking, you know, he does this a lot. I don't know if he's done that in front of you. But yeah, so like real quick, one of the first things that kind of came to my attention was what happened. I had gone to Hawaii many years ago. And when I had gone to Hawaii, I would call myself agnostic at that point. I wasn't sure what's going on. You know, I come from Pentecostal upbringing, and early on, I wasn't connecting with the way they were teaching about hell. I couldn't really connect to it. You know, I was like, yo, so what, you know, when that war, the Gulf War happened, I was like, what happens to the Muslim children? Like, so they're gonna go to hell because they believe what their parents taught them because they're born, and then they couldn't answer that. So I disconnected from it. I couldn't really connect to it. But then when I went to Hawaii, I was able to connect with some locals that were still in tune with their culture. And, you know, I learned so much, and how connected they were to the land, and their relationship to the sun and the animals. And it sounds very similar to what you were sharing. And I remember leaving Hawaii, like, you know, coming back to the US, like, I'm gonna find out what my culture is about, you know, and I want to connect to my culture. So my family's from the Caribbean, Dominican Republic specifically. And, but because of colonialism, you know, we lost our culture as well. And the one that replaced it, or the one that I was in, you know, grew up in, the Pentecostal belief system, it's a very different approach. Like I was hearing how you guys honor your ancestors. In my family, it's almost like there's a pressure to forget them. You know, like that's like literally the pressure. Like my mom was like the last one out of her sisters, like, to get into church and all that. And she used to have dreams where she would speak to dead people, you know, people from the other side. And she was like very intuitive and connected. But she was made to feel like that's evil, you know, and then she disconnected herself from that whole realm. And when her brother passed, which is my uncle, the one I was mentioning to you, like, I'm not sure if they told her, but she got rid of like all his stuff, and that's not typical of her. You know, she saved like a mirror that I dropped and broke, and I seen another side of my mother, you know, because it was like the last thing that was left of his. That and like an elephant. He was into like indigenous, you know, cultures, and he was more into that. But yeah, it's like there's a pressure to forget, you know, and then I heard you like talk about how you want to have a cool altar and you want to be remembered. And I remember when I was younger, that was a thought that motivated me with my purpose. Now I'm in a different place, you know. Yeah, I'm in a different place. Not that I don't want to be remembered, you know, but I've taken that pressure off of myself of wanting to be remembered. But yeah, that was important to me because it's like, you know, I want to be remembered, like I'm here, right? And I want to do things, and I don't want to do things and then nobody remembers me. So I thought that was cool. And it's cool to see how even though we're in this country, there's still individuals that can, you know, tap into their cultures and be able to teach the next generation ways of experiencing that can kind of like reset us from the mindset that has been given to us by the popular culture. So yeah, I really appreciate that. Steezy, Claudia.
Y'all are bringing up for me. I guess we're still on the death track.
If you want to, you don't got to. If you want to.
It was interesting because although I also grew up with some of the similar aspects that Danae was talking about in terms of the altar and those things. I think that my family was more grounded in colonialism and in Catholicism.
Mhm.
So how that what that looked like for me in terms of like conversations about death and all that was very different. And part of that like created, I think, a trauma for me, the relationship between life and death, because like my grandfather for would talk about ends of times all the time as a kid. Like this is what I would hear all the time. And then and I started thinking about what you just said, JR, also like how we put certain aspects of ourselves, right? When you shared about like dreaming with folks that have passed on, right? So for me, I've kind of like struggled because I'm trying to resolve the pieces of Catholicism that I do embrace still, and also resolving with new knowledge and also my changing perspectives. So I think when I started to reflect a little bit differently was when my brother passed away in 2009. Um, because I had these experiences that you kind of were talking about. So, like, he passed away from cancer. And when he passed away, I had left his hospital room to go drop off his girlfriend. And my sister and I were driving back. And as we're driving back, I'm literally having a vision of like my brother, people crying, and I see 5 o'clock on the clock. We get to the hospital, and literally I get phone calls from people, and like it's just a crazy scene, right? Um then after he passed, I want to say maybe I don't even know how long after, I had a dream, and like my dad and him, they were very much into cars, and in my dream he comes to my childhood home, and like he's back to his healthy looking self. And I run out to the driveway and I ask him, "Oh my God, you're fat again!" Because he has gotten thin. And I was excited about that. And he looked at me and said, "Yeah, I'm good now." With a smile, "I'm good now. I'm cool." Like I'm in that experience really shifted for me, like life and death. But yet I'm still struggling.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, so and I think that's kind of where my obsession with time came into, where it kind of goes back to it, is that um it's there's like a thin, like Danae was talking about, like the cyclical nature of nature, I guess, how things live and die, and it's a little bit different, um or the form of Christianity that has been taught to us, because I identify as a follower of Christ in the sense that I respect the life and testimony of the individual of that carries the story of Jesus Christ. I don't get caught up in none of the other details of it anymore. But I like the idea of a story of an innocent person who was just trying to look out for his people, and talked about the idea that one day, like, the little guy is gonna win, and we'll be the ones that will inherit the earth, um and then, so then, however, um being raised with the idea that there's this ending point, and that there isn't like this um fluid connection that exists, is hard to reconcile, because it doesn't seem like, it seems much more natural that that there's no clear definite end and beginning in things, that the line between ending and beginning is kind of fuzzy, it's not like a clear thing. um but yeah, that's been for me, like, so after Hawaii, I basically deleted all my belief systems and started from scratch, and gave myself permission to be open to a completely new belief system. And then the reason that I do like the character of Jesus Christ is from the sense that, like, so after working in the youth program, I worked in HIV. I was doing public health, and I would come across many individuals that were suffering in their, like, whether because they got HIV or they were victims of sexual abuse, or people sufferings. And I was always trying to figure out how to alleviate people's suffering through conversation. And what I realized is that some people just need a story. And I don't get caught up in what story you pick or choose or whatever. I know which story works for me. But some people need a story that can give them hope and that can allow them to, like, remove the burden of guilt or shame that they picked up through their programming, whether it's through some trauma or whatever happened. A lot of people are carrying guilt and shame, and they don't have a way of releasing it, and it plays in their head. And where I come back to time is, like, when we're children, we're like in the moment, for the most part, we're living in the moment. We're not stressed or worried about the future. The past, we don't really dwell on it. We're just trying to play the next game. But then when the trauma occurs, whatever trauma it might be, then all of a sudden that child is taken out of the moment and can now perceive a future that he or she or they or them need to now prepare for or consider. So rather than being in the moment, for instance, if someone's a victim of a bully, now they're having to think, how can I avoid the bully? How can what do I got to do to avoid the bully, instead of just enjoying the moment? And then when they're in a situation where they're triggered based on a conversation, then that can remind them of the time that the bully, and I'm just using a bully just for the lack of an example, then now they're identifying with that past experience, which again removes them from the moment, and then now they're in their head. So when I was working with HIV in the HIV field, I just found that a lot of people have a recorder that appears to have kicked in at some point after they lost their innocence or after they've been traumatized, and it kind of like repeats in their head. And it's almost like, so how can they stop that recording? And ultimately, for me, it's like there has to be some narrative, some big narrative, some superhero that you can identify with that was designed to eliminate that guilt or shame. And I think that we need to reimagine, like that's the word that D Steezy got me on. Unpack, what is that? Unpack, reimagine, and recreate what it is to be a superhero. Like, what is the function of a superhero? Because I think that our children, the individuals that have been traumatized, need a superhero that can lift that guilt or shame that we're unable to overcome on our own sometimes. So I'm very interested in being a part of real humans that are willing and interested in creating new mythologies. And I say mythologies, but I mean, like, we can be living myths, and we can consciously create a lifestyle or patterns of living that can be an example for the next generation, so that they don't have to carry some of the guilt or shame that maybe some of us were handed by the belief systems that were instilled in us. So D Steezy over there, what you think about D Steezy? Oh, by the way, we got about 2 minutes and change. So D Steezy, maybe you'll close us out, and the Donna A and Claudia at the same time.
No, y'all could close this out, because like I said, me and him do this all day. No, not all day, every night.
Yeah, we go in because like the time is different when it's one-on-one. So
yeah, so y'all can go ahead. It's just more information for us to like research later. No, I'm just playing.
Who want to close it? Who want to close it? Donna, facilitate us. You want to facilitate us?
Okay. Let's ground ourselves. I'm just kidding. Maybe next time I'll think of something to do. Literally, we had a very intense training today, so this is really good. You're grounding me back. I'm feeling centered again. I think what I want to just say is like last words is that I just appreciate humans. We're so complex and we're so beautiful, and sometimes you love them and sometimes you hate them, but it's like we all we have is each other, and we got to figure this out together, right? So I'm always thinking about that, right? The purpose of us crossing paths, right? Meeting each other. So I'm gonna stop there so I'll let Claudia say something too as you're eating your jicama.
Give me some of that jicama.
I enjoyed the jicama. I enjoyed the conversation. Um, I look forward to coming back and learning more.
Same.
It's been great. It's been fun. It might cut off while I'm talking. So D Steezy, hop in before we got like 10 more seconds.
The Real Talk Show. I'm your guest, D Steezy.
All right, so tune in. The Black Carrot Party presents the Real Talk Show, where we talk about friendship, love, and purpose. Friendship has everything to do with aura. Love is a more, and purpose is about saving time. I am JRX36, and this has been an All Ages Alliance production, and I made it, and there's still more time.